Light rain fell through the open roof of the old transit hall, dripping onto century-old marble and the tangle of cables Sybil was coaxing back to life. Somewhere deep in the guts of the Skyvault district, a generator rumbled like a waking beast, its bass throb carrying through the bones of the gutted station. Sybil's headlamp threw a moving pool of white across cracked mosaics, advertising airships that no longer existed. It seemed obscene, almost funny, that the room that once sold luxury passage to the skies was now the antechamber to a different kind of heaven, one reserved for those wealthy enough to abandon flesh altogether. Grady, her crew's muscle, loomed in the doorway, crossbow slung over one shoulder. "We good?" Sybil clipped two wires together. A column of overhead fixtures flared to life in a popping chain. Gray daylight flooded in, revealing the makeshift elevator shaft the Ascendants had constructed a decade earlier. "We're good," she answered. "Lift still has juice. That means the main line's alive, and the batteries they left behind haven't boiled off." She wiped grease across faded fatigues. "Everyone ready?" Dev and Kess, the crew's siblings and salvage experts, rolled up burlap sacks stuffed with sensors. Kess tried a grin. It faltered. "We've raided ghost factories and war bunkers," she said. "Why am I shaking now?" "Because this place isn't dead," Dev muttered. "It's half dead. That's always worse." Sybil pressed the call button. Pneumatics hissed. After a heartbeat, the cage rose through the broken floor, doors yawning wide. Inside waited the ceremonial red carpet the magnates had rolled out for their finale, now mottled with mold. Grady spat. "Let's say a prayer for the absent." No one did. They entered, and the cage groaned downward into the underworld, through layers of decorative plating, then raw concrete, then bedrock board cleaned by diamond tips fired on promises of immortality. The elevator stopped 7 levels down. When the doors opened, a rectangle of sterile white met them. The vestibule. Sybil had seen pictures, of course. The bodies reclining in chrome sarcophagi, faces half obscured by respirator masks, scalp electrodes spiderwebbing across domed lids. She had not expected the smell. Mild medicinal decay, like rose petals left to brown in alcohol. The air scrubbers still breathed, but the sweet rot of flesh hung everywhere. Rows upon rows of pods stretched out like pews. Some were open. Proof the Ascendants had launched their own consciousnesses into the servers and trusted automation to keep tissue minimally alive. Each shell had once been a tycoon, legislator, technocrat, influencer. Sybil forced her gaze away. They weren't her concern. What mattered lay beyond another set of blast doors, the data sanctum. Grady hefted a titanium pry bar. "Manual override?" "Don't bother," Sybil answered, holding up an RFID card she'd scavenged from a board member's villa weeks earlier. "Even Paradise has staff entrances." She swiped. Locks clacked open. Heat greeted them first. Dense, recycled air, pushed by turbine fans. Racks filled the vaulted room, blinking with emerald and amber LEDs that flickered anemically. The roar of coolant circulated overhead, yet it was an anemic roar, a throat clearing before failure. Sybil felt the vibration traveling through the soles of her boots. Stuttering, inconsistent. Dev's eyes gleamed behind magnifier spectacles. "So much silicon," he whispered. "We pull even a fraction of these drives." "Stop thinking like a scaver," Sybil cut in. She strode to a central plinth where holodisplays flickered. Touch surfaces reacted to her gloves. A maintenance login bloomed. Lines of diagnostic text scrolled. Voltage irregularity. Failure. Prediction. 226 hours. Cascade risk. Total archive. She swallowed. 9 days and some change. Kess read over her shoulder. Total archive, as in everything. Sybil tapped an image capture. Millions of color-coded memory clusters, each tagged to an identity. Countess Aurelium Bonu, Dr. Raphael Kim, Senator Lisbeth Shore. Souls, if you believed in that word. Software constructs of once living minds, if you didn't. When the power grid gives, the backups will drain, the clusters will starve, and the entire citizenry of Avalon will wink out. Grady whistled. Funny. They paid to escape death, and death's just been waiting in line. Dev leaned on a rack. We can salvage hardware, Sib. Forget moral epics. We're talking petabytes of quantum cert mem crystals. One crate buys us a fortress in the northern wilds. And kills them. Sybil's reply came faster than she'd expected. Kess shrugged. They killed themselves first. They put their pods here. Assumed poor folk would keep the lights on forever. Why do we owe them more than they owed us? No one answered. Instead, they listened to the server's faltering hum. Sybil exhaled. I need to see inside. You're not jacking in. Grady's brow furrowed. We promised. No digital diving without a tether. We have a tether, Sybil said. You. She motioned to a recliner meant for technicians, slid a neural lace over her temples, and lay back. Colors erupted. For a moment, she became pure geometry. Spiraling fractals. Clouds of thought sand, each grain a data packet. Then the shapes resolved into an atrium, suspended in mid-sky, its marble floors reflecting gold suns that wheeled above impossibly lush gardens. She stood barefoot in a gown of liquid glass. The sim auto-generated a pleasing avatar for newcomers. Music drifted on warm air. A steward appeared, digital yet startlingly human. Corn silk hair, amber eyes. Welcome, citizen, it greeted. Your latency is elevated. Shall I fetch tech support? I'm a visitor, Sybil said, testing her vocalized thoughts. I need a liaison. The steward bowed and vanished. In its place materialized a man wearing an antique pilot's jacket over pristine trousers. Sybil recognized him from old newscasts. Dayton Hale, Aerospace Air, and one of the architects of the Ascension Project. Name and domain? He asked politely. Sybil Rames, External Salvage Team. She forced herself to stand tall, though he towered. Your infrastructure is failing. You have 9 days, give or take, before catastrophic power loss. Hale laughed, not cruelly, genuinely amused. Yes, we've seen the enunciators. You misunderstand our architecture. The grid has redundancies. If one stack fails, we reroute. I'm not talking about a stack, she pressed. The geothermal tap downtown ruptured last month. City core is running on diesel reserves and prayer. When those tanks dry, your redundancies collapse. I'm here because I might be able to fix the physical side, if you'll let me. Hale's expression shifted, though not to fear. Rather a guarded skepticism. And the requested compensation? Not credits, Sybil said. They'd be worthless topside. I want open access. Let outside minds visit, maybe even stay. He smiled ruefully. We built Avalon to be free of old vices, greed, inequality. She barked a laugh. You built it by exporting those vices. Look around. Your heaven is literally gated. For the first time, Hale appeared uncertain. Permit me to consult the council. And just like that, he flickered out. Sybil explored while she waited. She crossed a bridge spanning a river of mirror water. People, souls, laughed on picnic blankets under violet willows. A woman painted clouds that reshaped themselves to please her brush. None showed the slightest hint of alarm. Minutes later, Hale reappeared with 2 attendants, Senator Shore and Dr. Kim. Their avatars glowed faintly, a subtle badge of authority. "We appreciate your concern," Shore began, every syllable diplomat smooth. "We've analyzed the worst case. Probability of total collapse sits at 0.4%. Sybil pulled maintenance readouts into the shared space. Lines of red error illuminated their faces. "Your metrics are spoofed. The motherboard overseeing probability forecasting failed hours ago. You are flying blind." Kim studied the data. He frowned, then whispered to the others in secure sideband. Sybil couldn't eavesdrop, but their posture stiffened. At last, Hale spoke. "Say we believe you. What do you want in return for rescue?" "Pathways," Sybil said. 1,000 regular folks, my choosing, get upload slots. And we build a governance charter that includes bodies in meat space who maintain equipment. Avalon becomes a commons, not a citadel. Kim shook his head. "Impossible. Processing is finite. Quality would degrade." Sybil spread her hands. "So optimize. Remove the private golf resorts, the redundant yachts floating in your digital bay. You can spare cycles." Shore's veneer cracked. "You come here, demand we restructure society because you claim the sky is falling. How do we know you're not lying for leverage?" Sybil sighed. "You don't, but the clock is real where I stand. Every second we argue drains what's left of the city's tankers." She disconnected before they replied. Static raced across her vision, and she gasped awake. Grady caught her shoulders. "You were under 9 minutes." Sybil recounted the exchange. Dev laughed bitterly. "They'll stonewall until the lights go out, then blame us for the dark. Let them burn." "There's another way," Sybil said quietly. "We cut the negotiation time by proving our hand. We fix the grid, but we rig a demonstration. Temporary brownout inside their world, so they feel fragility. Fear persuades." Kess blinked. "You want to yank their heavens plug to scare them?" "A controlled flicker," Sybil insisted. "Long enough to get them to the table, short enough to avoid data loss." Grady scratched his beard. "Risky. And we still need supplies. Spare turbines, fuel cells." Sybil paced. The military bunker near the coast stored hydrogen cells for the coastal defense drones. We haul them here, patch the feed, buy Avalon another decade. Enough time to integrate new citizens. Dev tapped the failing racks. "Time we burn retrieving hardware is time we're not selling it." Sybil looked at him. "I won't stop you if you walk, but I'm staying." Silence ticked loud. At last, Kess slung her bag. "Someone's got to keep the idealist alive. I'm in." Grady grunted assent. Dev cursed but didn't leave. The next 36 hours blurred into frantic improvisation. They drove a battered flatbed south, past suburban shells where vines crawled across old Teslas, to the bunker whose blast doors had buckled in a quake. Inside, they found what they needed: 20 hydrogen bricks, each the size of a coffin, stacked like waxy blue tombstones. Loading them was agony. Returning north was worse. Twice, Raider drones circled overhead. Once, a wheel sheared off, and Kess used a lamppost as lever to jam it back on. When they finally reversed the truck down the Skyvault freight ramp, sunrise painted skyscraper skeletons copper. Sybil's nerves sang. 9 days, now 6. In the sanctum, she and Dev accessed the main bus. The old geothermal feed still pumped tepid water. Useless. They rerouted the distribution panels, soldered new connectors. At dawn of day 5, the system accepted the first external cell. LEDs brightened, fans surged. Sybil laughed, dizzy with relief. "Do it," Grady said, finger over the manual breaker that would induce a 2-minute drop. "Make the gods feel mortal." Sybil swallowed. "Now." Grady flipped the switch. Within Avalon, sunsets froze mid-crimson. The mirror river stilled. Music stuttered, warped into metallic groans. Citizens looked up, startled, as if hearing thunder for the first time. Then everything went black. 40 agonizing seconds later, Grady restored power. Systems rebooted. Sybil dove in immediately. Chaos. People screamed near the atrium. Architects conjured diagnostic interfaces mid-air. Hale saw her and rushed over. His perfected face was pallid. "What happened?" "Demonstration," she said. "Your paradise dangles by a wire. I just replaced the wire for now. But if you want the next outage to be temporary, you'll accept the charter." Kim approached, fury in his pixelated eyes. That stunt risked irrecoverable corruption. "Less than 4%, Sybil replied coldly. "I ran the numbers." The council called an emergency convocation on the lawn, a surf-polished plateau overlooking virtual sea. Thousands assembled, some wearing togas, some in business suits of outdated fashion. Sybil stood alone before them, an outsider in patched fatigues. She projected real-time footage from the bunkers, the half-collapsed city, the diesel tanks reading 3% capacity. Murmurs rippled across the crowd. When her hollows showed the pods, shriveled bodies alive only technically, many looked away, as though embarrassed by their own corpses. Sybil's voice rang, "I am not your enemy. I'm the plumber called to the flooded palace, but payment is due. Your dream is big enough to share, or it will shrivel into an anecdote told by ghosts." Debate blazed for what felt like hours. Some demanded to spin up security AIs, expel her. Others saw pragmatism. Eventually, Hale returned to the rostrum. "The vote is cast," he said. 76% in favor of opening admission, starting with 1,000 new citizens chosen by lottery among the living, provided hardware expansion maintains our quality of experience. Sybil exhaled. "Then we have a deal. You'll also appoint a physical oversight guild, teams topside with salary, rights, and representation in council." "So agreed," Hale said, and the lawn erupted in mixed cheers and mutters. It was done, but it was only beginning. For weeks, Sybil's crew built extension bays in the vestibule. Freight elevators, once meant for linens, now carried glimmering new server blades, donated by repentant Avalon financiers who still owned property upworld. Grady trained dock workers to replace coolant lines. Kess liaised with lotteries, ensuring winners weren't solely the city's remaining elites. Dev grumbled less each day, especially after seeing his name drawn 7th in the queue. An accident, Sybil swore, though she suspected the system's algorithms made their own, sympathetic choices. Upload ceremonies were simpler now. A reclining chair, a visor, a final signature waiving liability. The first lottery winner, an elderly busker named Molina, woke inside Avalon under a sky of singing comets and wept at the feeling of lungs no longer drowning on smog. The physical world did not transform overnight. Trash still choked gutters. Rain still leaked through transit halls. But every data packet carrying consciousness meant another set of hands, albeit virtual, to design solutions. Avalon citizens, old and new, prototyped nanofabrication plants for the surface, created blueprints for wind towers to free them forever from finite fuel. They even fashioned translation layers so guild workers could commune with them via augmented goggles while standing on the grimiest catwalk. 6 months in, Sybil stood again, that atrium of marble and sun, her avatar dressed not by algorithm but by choice. Calloused hands, short hair, the scar over her left brow still visible. Hale joined her, looking weary yet serene. "You've been offered residency," he reminded. "I know." "Why hesitate?" You earned it. She watched children, some digital, some merely projected possibilities, chase jewel-tipped kites along a breeze. Somebody has to mind the generators, she answered. Even wind towers need grease. I was born heavy. I stay heavy. Hale nodded. Until the day you don't, she smiled. Maybe. Back in meat space, though, storms kept coming. Another quake rattled the coast, severing a cable line. Thanks to redundancies they'd installed, the servers hiccuped, but did not crash. Each trial hardened the mesh of silicon and sweat, of code and calloused hands. On the first anniversary of the rescue, skylights across the ruined city blinked in unison. It wasn't an outage. It was a message. A cascade of LEDs choreographed from within Avalon, spelling 2 words across avenues and towers alike. We remember. Sybil saw it while tuning a fuel cell. Dev stood beside her, fully digitized now, his ghost projected in translucent blue from a shoulder-worn emitter. He grinned. Told you Paradise would learn to say thank you. She chuckled, wiping oil from her chin. Keep 'em honest for me. Always, he promised, before pixelating away to join a celebration she could only imagine. Fireworks of pure math, orchestras playing symphonies in impossible keys. Night settled. The generator's basso voice thrummed, steady, content. Sybil lay on a cot near the pods. The husks inside no longer unsettled her. They were reminders of bridges between worlds. Someday her own body might rest here beside theirs, empty yet indispensable, a vessel whose sacrifice kept dreams alive. Until then, she would walk the corroded earth, tracing cables, replacing fuse after fuse, telling newcomers the story of the day heaven flickered and discovered it needed the ground. Because in the end, she thought, the rich had tried to leave the world behind, but the world had followed, wearing grease-stained coveralls, carrying hydrogen bricks, demanding a seat at the table. And now, while servers hummed and virtual suns rose on immaculate horizons, the real sun rose too, glinting off broken glass and newly planted saplings alike. Paradise was no longer a place to escape to. It was an agreement, fragile as any circuit, stronger than any wall. So long as people, flesh or code, chose to tend it, Avalon would endure. And Sybil, guardian of wires and promises, intended to keep the lights on.